All right, and welcome to the show. This is the Weekly Jargon. I am Jose Rodriguez.
And Rohi Zachariah.
And today, Rohi, we're talking about the Tule Fog, right? I mean, this has been an overcast, so to speak, here in the valley. And it's been around for some time. We haven't seen sun well over 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know when the sun will appear, but it's starting to drive me a little nuts. I'm starting to get a little pale now. Right?
Yeah.
What about you? What do you think so far?
It is. I mean, it's definitely depressing. It was funny because my daughter and I were talking last night, and she was the conversation was, oh, the sun came out yesterday, and it's amazing how we again, like you said, it's probably 3-4 weeks of just solid overcast in a sense, and we're excited by the fact that we saw the sunshine.
Is that right? And where did you see the sunshine?
I missed it. I was inside all day, so I didn't get a chance to experience it. But obviously, our kids, I'm sure when they were like PE or something, that was her excitement. Is that, hey, the sun came out. We got to see it. It's sad.
This is what I'm bringing up. Right now, you're seeing in our screen here, you're seeing the actual Tule Fog, so to speak, of what they call this cloud over the Central Valley due to its topography. And, we're surrounded by mountains. So because there's no really air coming through to clear that, and there's other explanations that Rohi will dive into right now, but I just want to give you a good look from the satellite view of what this Tule Fog looks like that's clouding all Central Valley, right? It stretches for hundreds of miles. I will say, Rohi, that I had an opportunity to drive to Coarse Gold on Sunday, and I did see the sun rise, right? Because I was there early morning.
Yeah.
And then I could see as I'm coming down a certain part of Coarse Gold, I can see the blanket that stretches out miles and miles. And I was like, wow, what a phenomenon, right? And I mean, you always see these clouds when you're up high in elevation.
Yeah.
But nothing to the extent of what we've seen here today. And I don't know, or maybe it's been around, but it hasn't really been spoken about for a long time. I haven't heard of the Tule Fog. I've heard of the Tule Lake, but the Tule Fog here, this is something totally different. And give us an explanation of how this Tule Fog is formed.
So its name comes from some of the Tule grass that is predominant here in the valley, I guess. And according to this, it's saying that essentially a lot of the fog, they've been tracking it, obviously, and it tended to relate to the increase of air pollution. So as air pollution during the industrial age of the 30s was increasing, the fog was getting worse, and then obviously California took a lot of drastic measures to start reducing air pollution, and we saw a reduction in it. And I can say as a kid, the fog is definitely, I think, especially as Christmas rolls in, it's the memory that you have to know when it's Christmas time, because, when you would go to Fresno or just, driving around town, it was almost like when you go to the ocean and there's like that time of day when the clouds come in, the fog would roll in, and it was just kind of like one of those things that you knew that it was Christmas, because that's when it would seem to be more predominant, thicker, lingering around a little bit more. This year it's a little different, though. I would say the fog part of it, like that fog where it's at ground level, doesn't feel very prevalent. But like you said, like this continual cloud over us is what's the lingering part, because at least the fog you kind of have to have that, the sunshine, it warms up the ground, then you get the cool night, and that's kind of what releases a lot of that moisture into the air. And I feel like it's cold, but we're not getting the sunshine. So it's kind of this weird, I don't know, dynamic of it's just kind of there, just lingering,
Yeah, no, for sure. And, part of the Tule Fog, again, I explained it earlier that we're in what they call the bowl effect, right?
Yeah.
And thousands and thousands of years back, the way the topography in California, I come to find out that California at some point was also a huge, especially the Central Valley, was like a retainer of all this water.
Yeah.
And they called that the Corcoran Lake, because it's stretched out almost in the same shape that you see this Tule Fog, right? Because it's somewhat of a bowl effect, and the Central Valley is surrounded by mountains. In this case, with the fog, it traps all that cold air, and slowly, the word radiation comes out, right? And when we talk about radiation, the first thing that comes to my mind is, wait a minute, I see that in X-rays, I see that in nuclear activity, but the way it radiates its temperatures, meaning throughout the day, the ground will absorb a lot of the heat from the sun.
Yeah.
And at night, when it cools, it'll start releasing that hot air, but it gets trapped. It's the hot air goes above this cloud, and it really starts dropping temperature pretty quickly. So hence the word radiation, and it's just like a radiator, right?
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
radiating off heat. So not to be confused with hey, this is really bad because we're taking in this radiation, right?
Yeah.
But it's something at least for me, it was good to know that, because again, the term, it's used interchangeably with different types of the nuclear radiation,
Yeah, yeah,
X-rays, and what have
Yeah.
you. So in this case, it's more of a term utilized by meteorologists, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So anyhow, and looking at that picture, Rohi, and I'm sure you can probably see it, but
Yeah.
it's kind of weird shape. But man, what a blanket over our valley, right? I mean, and we don't really think about it because we think it's normal until it goes on for an excessive amount of days. And
Yeah.
I said, hey, are we ever going to see sun? So now I'm looking
Yeah.
at my phone and I'm looking at the temperature and I'm thinking, at some point, the sun's got to come out. And I think we're maybe expecting some rain that may clear
Yeah.
out some of this fog here. But that would certainly help because it's out there. The sun's definitely out there.
It does exist.
It does exist, right?
Yeah, but there's a lot of a lot of side effects that, again, you don't realize, and you can get into the politics of like climate change or global warming or whatever you want to say, but the things you can argue, which is I do remember that winters seem to be colder. You know what I mean? I still remember as a kid, when you would go to school and go play outside, and if there was a puddle, the idea of it being frozen over, like ice, you know what I mean? And I feel like we haven't really had a lot of days last couple of years to where we had a lot of those like below freezing temperatures, and industries are affected by that. One of my customers, they were talking about, because they sell propane, how propane sales are down. And you don't think that. And he says, well, because there's no cold winters. People aren't consuming the propane to stay warm because it's just not really that cold. And you listen to that and you think about it and you go, and like I said, I think like our averages the last couple of weeks been like mid 40s. So it's cold, but it's not freezing cold. Like it's not getting to where, like I said, you used to feel that. And then, the farmers, you hear them and they're the same way, that they need those freezing temperatures for these trees, because we had a lot of weird weather the last couple of years where, I know for my trees in the backyard, November, they're starting to bloom again because they're confused, because we kind of had a warm October, November. It really wasn't hitting those lows to tell them, hey, shut it off.
Shut it off. No, yeah.
Start dropping your leaves,
And you're absolutely right. I think in agriculture, we see that although the fog may be dangerous, fog is vital to the ag business,
Yeah,
right? And it provides that winter chill that you were referring
Yeah.
to, because trees, especially nut trees, have to go into a dormant stage. And once they do that they'll produce higher yields throughout the spring.
Yeah.
So it is necessary. And we do have quite a bit of nut trees, right?
Yeah.
More so
Yeah.
almond, right, being one of the bigger crops here in the Central Valley, pistachio. And there's not too many places in the world that provide that type of season that allows these trees to go dormant and then come spring, relive again and yield a lot of the product. And this is why the Central Valley becomes one of the premier places where this phenomenon happens.
Yeah.
So, and it's give or take, right? We've seen, I think you had touched on the quality of air.
Yeah.
And go ahead and
Well,
touch on that there.
it's kind of the difficulty that you have. The fog is attributed to the increase in air pollution, right? And you would think like, well, we don't want air pollution, we want clean air. But then the negative side is, well, now it's reducing that dense fog that we need, for the agricultural side, So who's going to win out, And I know with air too, I know we'll never get there because there's no certain sense of purity, but even the idea of rain, like rain needs impurities in the air to basically form rain, So you get to this crazy dilemma, if you want to say, of, when we talk about what's natural and, is it in the best interest? Do we need more rain? So do we go throw up crap into the air so that it can rain more? Or do we say, hey, know what? We just need pristine, clean air. And the side effect is, well, it doesn't get as cold. We don't get as much fog.
No, and sitting in the Valley Air board, I get to hear this a lot, with the Clean Air Act and how these aggressive measures have been placed on California, more specifically in the Central Valley because of its region, right?
Yeah.
Again, topography has a lot to do with it. If you live in the higher elevations or coastal, then you have a breeze that typically cleans a lot of that air, right? But here in the California, it's like that bowl. Everything comes here. So I think with the aggressive reduction in emissions over decades of hard work, we've gotten to attain certain goals. Now, we haven't met federal levels of what they'd like to see with particulate matter, but they've done a great job in reducing a lot of the what they call the NOx or the nitrate oxide, and which is caused by a lot of the emissions produced by either stationary factories and or heavy diesel equipment that travels down our corridors and obviously our vehicles. You start seeing the use of electrification, you start seeing better equipment. Valley Air, for example, has a farmer program that provides a lot of incentives for replacing these heavy diesel equipment, or whether it's tractors and diesel trucks and what have you. So they provide these incentives because dollar for dollar, that's probably where you're going to get the better results, right? I mean, we still have certain clean car initiatives where, smogs, replacing your car. But I think at the end of the day, your bigger reduction in emissions is going to come from removing these types of fossil fuel or diesel equipment that's going to produce a lot of these NOx. And over the years, we've seen a study to show that we have been declining in that. But again, to your point, it's good for us because here in the valley, we do have 1 out of 6 people that suffer some type of asthma illness, right? And you start seeing it because more and more of these centers are popping up. So in a way, I'm glad that we're shifting in a better way of producing cleaner air. But like you said, I don't know if we can completely rid of it. Our efforts are starting to show signs of progress.
I mean, and again, just because of where I always want to picture humans, we can go to the moon, we can send things into space, we can build all these great things, and the problem here is the fact that we're in a bowl, right? Like whether you want to call it a toilet bowl or whatever, you know, a bathroom tub. I've heard different terms. And when you think of those problems, you build a plug, you clean the drain. And to think that, and I know environmentalists would never go for it, but almost to the fact of saying, well, why don't we fix the problem? Why don't we find out where we can funnel that air out better? Maybe we build giant fans, or maybe or collection things that can pull stuff out of the air, which I know there's some of those. That's kind of the big thing now with like the CO2 farms, essentially, where they're going to suck the CO2 out of the air and kind of trap it so that we can reduce our CO2 levels. You almost feel like California should take that initiative. Say, like, how much are we spending telling you to stop driving your car and, use this and all these incentives, and go like, well, maybe it's as simple as like, we just cut a hole in the mountain so that the air can actually flow out. And even thinking that, though, is that going to screw us up when now 5 years down the road after they build it, there's no more fog anymore. And farming can't survive because we're not getting that chill. And it's who wins out? Is it the clean air? Is it the farmers? Is the fact that we need food?
It's a lot to weigh out, believe it or not. There is a lot to weigh out. So this mega project that you're talking about, Rohi, would probably require billions and billions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
And
like the train.
Like the train. So maybe it's something
maybe the train can push the air. We'll put giant things to push the air with the train.
No,
that's
for
the grand-
sure.
Maybe we don't realize that's the plan.
That may be the plan.
The train is really
Yeah.
going to push the
It's
air
going to
for
push
us.
a lot of the air, especially at the 200 and some miles speed that it's capable of.
Yeah, it's going to break up the fog.
Yeah, no, for sure. But and you're right. I mean, what technology is available, right? I mean, we hear about these technologies that can potentially cause certain rain in certain areas, right? I mean, we talk, you would hear it, and I don't know. Again, people don't want to talk about this, but the military, to some extent, had cloud seeding. That, and again, this could have been something. I don't know if it was military or if it was industrial use, right?
Yeah.
And then you had this other so-called secret unit that would create some type of storms or what have you, right? And
HARP, man.
HARP, there you go.
Yeah,
Thank you.
HARP.
It's
Come
been
on.
some time since
That's not
I've.
secret.
But that's I mean, and when you
real thing.
research it, it's there. It's just
there.
can it really affect weather, and can you control that to a certain extent, and is that good or bad?
I mean, again, it's the crazy things that if you look on the macro scale, like you're saying, like a project to literally build a drain hole to push the air out is billions of dollars. But if you look at it in the micro scale and say, all right, again, going back to some of our old talks, like in the spring, California has so much free electricity, like it's selling it. So, hey, why don't we make a giant fan that sucks the air out of the, just sucks it in, filters it out, pumps out clean air, and we just use it during peak hours when there's too much power anyways, right? Like things like that, you kind of go, it could be, maybe you incentivize just people, like we do solar. Hey, you buy this little machine, it's, whatever, maybe 4x4, it pulls air out, it filters it out, and it's a system that's just kind of like scrubbing the air for us, right? Okay, well, we can't build everybody to have one, but if you had a program where, if that was our true goal, cleaning the air, and the machine turned on automatically when there's too much solar anyways, and it doesn't go against your solar bill or your electric bill because you're just helping California burn energy, essentially. Like, things like that get frustrating because it's doable. It could be easily implemented to some degree, and if the true goal was cleaning air. Now, I always go crazy and go to the extreme of that and say, let's imagine California 5 years from now has no gas emissions, no CO2 emissions, like nothing is happening, right? We get to this so-called pure air, and let's imagine we get global cooling, and all of a sudden temperatures start dropping. Are we ever going to get to a point where we say it's too cold? Jose, you need to go fire up that car up there because there's not enough CO2 to keep us warm, and we're getting to freezing temperatures every winter. Is there going to be that balance of where all of a sudden we're freaking out because it's too cold?
Well, think about it this way, Rohi, and obviously with science says that Earth has been around for millions and millions of years. So who's to say that it hasn't gone through these cycles?
Sure, it has.
Right? Hence
before we were here.
Yeah, hence the Ice Age, right? And I think it goes through certain cycles, right? I mean, at least my opinion. Again, weekly jargon.
That's called science.
Yeah.
That's called science.
Yeah, exactly. We, here at the
You're
Weekly
using
Jargon,
real science.
here at the Weekly Jargon, we like to provide opinions of what we gather, right? And obviously you can agree to disagree and challenge that and tell us what it is. And we love to learn as well. But nevertheless, I do think that these cycles do happen. And when there is so much CO2 in our air, you see these greenhouse gases that take place, radiates heat. But after it radiates so much heat, then it creates a phenomenon effect where it starts saying, well, how are we capturing this, right? You have life that's absorbing the CO2. And if you take it away from the air, coral reef, for example, the ocean, it comes down in some carbon, it captures it. And then you no longer have that layer where you're keeping it radiating. So there are times where the cycle may go in through a very chilly and icy, and that's why they call it the Ice Age. It goes, I mean, again, I gathered it not only through science, but I think about it and rationally. I said, you know what, this does happen. It happened before because there's history and there's proof that it's happened, right? And I don't think that we're immune to that. I mean, even with the advanced technology, think about it. The humans have created a certain amount of energy throughout its activity that it does, right? Whether it's producing more emissions to driving, breathing, and what have you. Essentially, I mean, that reaches a peak, and then it starts declining. I hate to say this, but it happens in all life forms, and Earth is life. So anyhow, not trying to get too deep into the science, but I'm sure you can read that up and research it yourself. If you disagree, then come on back, throw something back at us. So we're always looking for comments and new topics to talk about. But Rohi, your thoughts on that?
My argument is always going back to because you use some science there, and it's always arguing with people when they say the word natural or what would nature do, and it's remembering, like you said, if we go back and we think, million years ago, right, or 5 million years ago, or it's if we were to think in that aspect of what the Earth was doing and things that were outside of our control. It's understanding things like, well, when a volcano erupts, which it does all the time, it puts out way more pollution than we can even imagine ourselves putting out. But we don't have a campaign that says cap every volcano. We can't have any more erupting because it's a natural process. So I think that's why you've seen some of the change in conversation about, saying global warming versus climate change. And that is always frustrating because, like you said, climate change is going to happen. If we eradicate humans altogether, climate change is going to happen. It's going to continue to happen until the dawn. The time just ends. It's understanding like what's under our control, and kind of when we talk about capitalism, its understanding is, again, if we're so fixated on maintaining our planet and maintaining California or even just maintaining Madeira, it's going and saying like you said, it's going to cost billions. Spend the billions. If it's about clean air and if it's about fixing that problem, you spend it. But as people, and we're all about capitalism, we have to justify things so much, and that's where I guess I get a little bit of a fight, because it's like, we're over here, California, we're doing all this stuff, no more diesel cars, like you said, or diesel vehicles in farming. And then you go across the ocean to places like China and, these other countries that are just like pollution city. Yeah. And you're like, well, why am I doing it? Look at these guys. I mean, they could care less. They're burning everything,
And I think the argument to that, Rohi, is that because the rest of the world is doing that doesn't mean that we can't provide efforts in trying to clean, because I get it. Yeah, these are hundreds and hundreds of miles away. Do they have an effect to our air here, right? I mean, we live in areas where we have these pockets, or they call them air basins. Yeah. No different than water, right? Water basins. But whatever's above us does affect us to some extent, right? Yeah. So again, in our unique situation here in the valley, we are in a bowl. So essentially, we get this coastal breeze that comes over the mountains, cools us down here. But at the same time, we don't have a lot of the emissions that really go outside of that mountain. Yeah. It stays here, right? So a lot of times it goes up, comes back down, and we're recycling that over and over. So I do agree that when it comes to capitalism, you have to have a balance, because if the human goal was to really better your situation, then that would be the goal, written down, or as a constitution, that would be our deal. But again, when you have the principles of these principles of economics, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, and raw materials, then that really goes against that principle, because can you do it? I think here in California, we're trying to put those together and find a fine balance. Sometimes the bureaucracy takes over and trying to overdo that work, and sometimes the capitalistic nature takes over that. And it's always trying to find that balance of where can we still provide good ambition, promotions, not promotions, but incentives to try to get people to do something great in this framework of our Constitution, right, that allows us to do that. And at the same time, provide good quality living for people, right? And that's a fine you have to fine tune that to where you find a good balance. But unfortunately, that's not the case, right? We have these back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But like to your point, if that was our goal, Rohi, we would have put all this money and this focus on it. But we have to balance that with the incentives of wanting to, the American dream.
Yeah.
Pursuing that pursuit of happiness, right? And that's an argument in itself, right? We can always bring that back.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get clouded.
Yeah. You want to see a ray of sunshine?
That's right, a ray of sunshine. So again, this is our topic today on the Tule Cloud. Rohi, I know you have something that you're dying to say. There's something there that you want to say. What's going on locally? Anything that you want to bring up? It does look somewhat Christmassy, right?
It does. Yeah.
Obviously, it has that feeling. We just need the snow. We don't get it down here at the valley, and if we do, it's very rare.
Yeah.
You do get it at the higher elevation, but here it would be nice, right?
Yeah. Again, going back to just the season we're in, I think it's those little things that we kind of need to put the icing on the cake as far as remembering it's Christmas. For us here in the valley, when it's been a little warmer and not quite as cold, or I know asking like my kids and asking other people, it doesn't feel like Christmas yet.
Yeah.
And again, maybe California can incentivize a program that makes it artificially snow here in the valley for us to just,
I think they should, because now that the sun's not out, those that have solar are going to feel the effects of their energy bills over the next couple of months, right? And you'll see it when they tell you, well, because you didn't have power produced throughout this time and you were using electricity, because one, the day ends sooner, so you're home sooner and you've got to use electricity and you're doing it through peak times. Then you have to keep your home warm. So that means more of the natural gas, or if you have that electric heater.
Which I will say,
please.
There was a product, and I've heard about them before, and I see it came up on my Instagram. It's a heater, but it's a Bitcoin miner.
Really?
Yeah, and they're pretty affordable. I mean, ish, but it goes back to some of the older days, reminding me of. There was a group that had made these heaters. They weren't really in the Americas; they were overseas, and they were cryptocurrency miners, because the side effect of cryptocurrency miners, they get hot.
Yes.
And in the winter or the summertime, that sucks. But then when you come wintertime, you plug it in. And this article, and I agree with it, was talking about how it's consuming the same amount of electricity as what they call your dumb heater, which is. They showed just your normal, fake fireplace or whatever you got that's just literally sucking electricity and turning it into heat. And this thing is actually producing money. So in some degree, it's actually paying for itself, or you're earning you back.
Really? Okay.
So I saw that, and I was really hesitant to not push that buy button, because those are things that, when you see them, you're like, here's again something that makes sense. Like, why doesn't California just give all of us these Bitcoin miners or incentivize me buying this Bitcoin miner, which produces money, instead of putting a dumb heater that
but they don't want you to have money.
Yeah, I know.
They don't want you to have
give
money.
them to the people that, instead of that have the chimney, right? And they're trying to get me to get rid of my chimney. Tell them, hey, look, we'll give you an incentive, to buy this little Bitcoin miner thingy, because it's electricity, but the incentive. Tell people it makes you money instead of just.
There you go. See, I like that, and you should be able to generate one full Bitcoin by how many years?
Oh, never. But
never, but still, there you go. But see, that in itself is a good idea, Rohi.
Yeah.
I'd say we pitch it, we put it in a write it up and present it to one of our state senators, maybe, or assemblywoman. We know a couple of them, right?
Yeah.
And we can get them to start creating an initiative there, right?
My garage is a warm 73 degrees right now because of my servers that are running in my garage.
There you go. See?
So if you want to heat your house, I would tell you to look into it. So
look into your servers. And Rohi, if you want to buy one of those, come see us. Aside from the firearms, you can always come and see Rohi.
There we go.
All right. So with that, again, this is going to conclude this episode on the Tule Fog. If you have any questions about the Tule Fog, look it up on the internet. You'll find out exactly what the Tule Fog consists of, and I'm sure you'll find some answers. If you disagree, feel free to reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions. But with that, we'll go ahead and say thank you again for watching.